Hi, I'm Stephanie Boozer with CUGC HQ. Welcome to today's webinar with ControlUp. We are excited to have some people back with us who haven't been with us for a while, so I'll get to those introductions in just a little bit. But first of all, I want to go over some housekeeping details. We are recording today's session, and you will get a link to that recording. It's going to come to you in an email tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. Also, make sure that you type your questions in as you have them. We're going to take as many as we can today, so don't be shy. Type those in as you think of them. Also want to call out that ControlUp is a sponsor of our CUGC Women in Tech program, so thank you for that. Their sponsorship allows us to provide all kinds of great content, our mentorship program, lots of things that we do throughout the year, so I thank them for being a sponsor. All right, so let me introduce who we have with us today. We have Doug Brown and Marcel Calef, both from ControlUp. Doug and Marcel, Doug's been on our webinar stage before in a different capacity, but Marcel, I don't think I've had you on my webinar stage yet, so welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
And also with us today, we have James Rankin. He is a CTP and a part of the CUGC UK group. And James is going to be keeping an eye on all of your questions. Like I said, type them in as you have them. Thanks for joining us, James.
No problem. I am happy to be here again. It's very, very dark and very miserable and wintry here in the UK, but hopefully we can get cheered up by listening to some updates and whatnot from ControlUp, which obviously I find very interesting myself because many of my customers do use ControlUp, so it's all good stuff.
All right. So with that, I'm going to hand things over to Doug and Marcel. I'm going to stop sharing this screen, and I'll be back a little bit later to cover some of the stuff at the end of the webinar. So take it away.
Perfect. Yeah, so welcome everybody. Thank you all for joining this webinar. I'm the pretty face today, and Marcel, he's the expert's expert. So I'm really looking forward to myself to watch this demo. Marcel will talk in a second and I'll shut up, but he's a true, like I said, a true expert, and everything we're going to show today is live demo. Is that correct, Marcel? We've even shown it.
So this is that, marketing forces me to put it. So here's the slide. We all talk about it, and it's our digital employee experience management. The only other thing other than live demo that I might show throughout is our architecture slide, and we'll share that the link to the webpage on our support where you have this. This shows everything that we're going to talk and how you can configure control. So this should be able to answer any questions that come up on the architecture.
You got it, and that's totally acceptable. An architecture slide, we love that stuff, right? Absolutely.
Okay.
So what are you going to show us, Marcel?
So
I mean, the agenda today is security. So how does all this work? How do we fit in security?
Definitely. So as you're looking at what's happening with your users connecting to your Citrix environment, you have them inside your office or data centers or coming in from anywhere. And ControlUp allows you to monitor that user experience both directly from the device and through the Citrix HDX channel. We have a feature on our product, our VDI and DaaS monitoring, that allows you as an administrator to collect metrics on what's happening on the endpoint, and that could include security items. So let's jump and take a look into that. So I was just looking at what my friend Matt is doing here. As I look into it, he came into mind because he has some really bad Wi-Fi. But for those of us in the US, Xfinity Wi-Fi is that free Wi-Fi you get from Xfinity if you are one of their customers. And the downside to it, it is a public Wi-Fi with no authentication. So without a tool like ControlUp, you can't know. There's no way for you to know on your Citrix environment that this user is connected to a non-secure Wi-Fi. And ControlUp gives you that visibility. I am going to jump in.
Marcel, sorry, can I just
Yes,
jump in there?
please, of course.
You're looking at the actual user endpoint itself right now. Does that need to be a managed endpoint, right? Do you need to have some control over that, or is there somewhere you can get that data from, like a bring your own device or something like that?
And I'm going to assume, James, that the BYO conversation is one that comes up, and I know that's kind of a big elephant that we all talk about it. We all want to be BYO, but it doesn't always happen. What does happen, and I'm sure that a lot of our participants have that, is you have a lot of contractors, a lot of third parties that have a managed device by somebody else. So as a Citrix administrator, not always will you have the ability to pull a full-blown managing agent on that device. And this is where this information I'm showing here that we call remote DX, and there we go, back to the architecture side, it will come in through your HDX connection. You put a plugin that attaches to Citrix Workspace app, and it creates a virtual channel and passes the information through that same HDX connection. So you don't need to have a fully managed endpoint client, or it could be fully managed even if it's not by you, but by a third party.
That's a very good point, because I mean, I work primarily in finance, and we have lots of third parties managed by like big body shops and things like that. And it's very challenging. I mean, just trying to get, I mean, a lot of our users are still using Citrix Receiver 4.12, which you can imagine is very challenging when it comes to letting them have Teams on virtual desktops and things like that, right? So it's just a plugin that you need to get on there, right? So you would need to speak to that managed provider and say, can we get a plugin? Is that something the users could do themselves, or would it still have to be centrally managed, from their kind of IT side?
Just like Citrix Receiver, right? The only thing you need is you need to be an administrator on the machine that gets installed. So the same way you can ask from your third party or your body shop, as you call them, to put in Citrix Receiver or Workspace app, you can ask them to put the plugin, and it's there's no configuration needed. It just creates the channel inside. Actually, there is configuration needed, but not on the client. Since 2103 of Citrix VDA, with the initiative for Zero Trust, all third-party virtual channels are closed by default, so you would need to enable it on your Citrix Studio. Other than that, so you as an administrator enable it at your Citrix Studio. You request from your users or your third party to install the plugin, and it will piggyback the information on the Citrix connection. And you mentioned receiver 4.12 or 4.12. I can tell you that we've tested this with receiver 11.2, and it still works. You can't go further back than 11.2. There's some HTTPS requirements that are not met by the client anymore if you go further back than 11.2, but it works all the way back to 11.2. And not just PC, it works also on Mac, on iGel, and different and on other thin client platforms. So that information that I was showing, let's go back to the demo, can be coming from PCs, from Macs, or from thin clients. And notice we do have somebody in a Gartner conference, so probably he did get a secure Wi-Fi, but it is you can see where your people are. We will get also the BSSID, allowing us, for example, on a large corporate, to identify the Wi-Fi hotspot that they're connected to. So that can help you too on managing that digital employee experience. And as I said, Windows, Mac, and Linux devices as well can be monitored. And you'll get back into the security conversation. What is the version of the device, that operating system? So just a touch of information on what's happening there, but all about the Wi-Fi, the network connectivity, and what operating system are they running. So these, I think they're iGels, and 11.06 is a pretty outdated version. So I definitely need to ping the administrator of that platform to get those updated. Not to talk about Windows 7. So that's another one.
Marcel, I have a quick question for you. So James asked about the client getting this piece installed into the Citrix client, and I see this is solve.controlup.com, so it's a SaaS solution. What else is needed? What does it take to right now you're demoing this thing for us. What does it take to set up the other pieces of infrastructure? Are there other pieces of infrastructure for someone to then download this, get this thing going right away? Well, what does that take?
So there's very minimal infrastructure. Again, I'm going to have to go to that hybrid diagram, the architecture diagram. The only thing you need to set up is what we call a VDI and DaaS monitor. It is a service that runs on a Windows machine. It aggregates the data both from what we collect directly on your VDAs and the APIs from the underlying hypervisors and the Citrix environment and the NetScaler gateway or Citrix ADC. It collects all that data, packages it, and sends it out. So as an organization, you would download the configuration console and then from there deploy all the components, this component and the agent running on the VDA, and establish the credentials and the connection for the APIs. And then everything else is provided as a service, the backend for the VDI and DaaS monitoring, the web console, the historicals. So it can be as simple as one VM. And again, not all environments are that simple. If you look at this diagram, you'll see that I do represent here the fact that we can collect data in a data center and we can collect data on a cloud service. So Azure, AWS, we can also collect data on your VDAs there. So if you are running your Citrix VDAs in the cloud, you can put the agent on that machine, collect that data, and then we'll aggregate that data with the Azure platform data. I'm just trying to keep myself in the spirit of the security. We do use obviously this monitor, by the way, allows you to keep the environment isolated. So although it is a cloud service, you don't need all of these components to have access to the cloud. Just the VDI monitor will grab all that data and send it out, and you can even do it through proxies.
So talking about this from a security perspective, because obviously working in finance, I do have to do a lot of security related stuff. And I know if I had my security guys looking at this, one of the first things they would say is, you know, information within the session that pertains to things that may have, you know, financial implications, personally identifiable information and things like that. How is that going to be secured in this sort of environment?
So first of all, we have our security landing page where we show all of our certifications, SOC 2, SOC 3, our ISO certifications. We're very conscious of your security. The backend is running on the public cloud, so we don't set up our own data center because we can't do it better than the cloud provider. So we use our backend is running on Azure and AWS backends, so it is fully has all the security that those backends provide. The other thing is we, as I said, collect only one machine needs to have the data coming out. And then if you look at the data that's really being collected, CPU, memory, IO, network connectivity information, there's really no personal identifiable information for your customers. You do want to have information on the user that's connected. That's your corporate user. I see a lot of companies that are sensitive to that. They won't use actual names, but they'll use numbers. So that way has a layer of security that I know a lot of companies do already embed on their usernames and machine names. I've seen places where the VDAs aren't, and again, this is a demo environment, so I make my life easy on that aspect. If I look at my machines, I don't have to tell you what they are. You could tell me exactly what this machine is.
So I've got a quick question that's just dropped in there, actually saying, is it Federal Department of Defense or NIST security certifications? Are they part of what's
not currently? No, those are things that we want to get to, but at this moment we don't have those certifications. We do have for organizations that absolutely need to run on an air-gapped environment. We do have a version that is air-gapped. There might be some limitations, but so far everything I've shown here is available also on the fully air-gapped version. Must say that most of our customers are able to run on our hybrid cloud version.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing about personally identifiable information, I know what you're talking about. You know, there's not a lot of it in there, but in my actual role, I had once, you know, a specific request from a certain part of the business that said they wanted to hide. You know, in Citrix Direct, how you can see that like the name of a window if a user's got it open, and the
Yes.
subject of an email, and they said the subject of the email was classed as personally identifiable information, which to do with the trade floor, so you can understand how sensitive it would be, and they asked for Citrix to blank that out. So I know that there's not often a lot, but you may find left field requests about what is PII and what's not. But anyway, I digress.
No, you're not. You're spot on. And I actually, if I search your last name, there is somebody, that same demo user we were looking at happens to be looking at, let's see what it is, your LinkedIn page, your Twitter page.
Oh, there you
So
go.
one thing we could do is we could actually mask that information. So let's grab your last name. I'll copy that. I'll go to the configuration console, and in the settings, I'll go to my active application, and I'm going to add a rule that if it shows anywhere your last name, I don't want to show it.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I did not.
That
I
is
did
cool.
not put that out there for you to bat away. That is legitimately what came up in my head, because I've
Yep.
had this request from me, and I didn't know ControlUp could do that. So there you go.
So let's give it a second. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It should get blown out in a second. I know that the web console takes a couple seconds more. Let me just cycle through it. And if I try to search for your last name again, let's just paste it, because I still have it on my clipboard. Interesting. Still giving it here. Let me just check here. So that's Matt. This is Matt. It's not picking it up yet. So that's interesting. Let me just review that yep, it is ignore. And I might have to, let me go to my page. So I'm on that other machine. I switch to my machine, should update here. I'll go back to your last name, and now it should go and tell us hidden by rule.
Awesome.
Right. Yep. So I just had to toggle out of it. There it is. It's still matching the URL, but it's match, and I could hide the URL as well if needed.
Yep, that's pretty cool. That's cool.
Okay, so yep, definitely. You know, we hear a lot of those questions on how do I hide those things, and by default, it is turned off. You can turn it on, and once you turn it on, it's anything that has confidential. It has a couple of examples so that you have an idea what you want, but you could put anything you want, and it'll be hidden by rule. So that will prevent that. The other thing that we have really powerful, it's still not something that we've brought up to our web console yet. It is on the roadmap though, is the ability to take a screenshot of what's happening on that session. And that is something that, yes, it can be disabled completely. And we even have, just like Citrix has a flag that once you set, you cannot unset. We do have that capability to also block completely. Where did it go? Block completely what's happening. So we can disable this this option completely. There it is.
Cool. I remember using that feature before, actually. That's really useful for, you know, when you've got somebody who's smashing the CPU or something like that, and you want to know what's going on. But I also understand why in certain regulated environments you need to give people permission for it, because there is a potential for mischief as well as being useful.
Yep, and you spoke about, let's go for it, YouTube. So I'm on that other machine as well. Let me hit the refresh button. I'm going to go to YouTube. This is that session. Get session screenshot. So what I want to show here, right, is other things you could do with ControlUp. So I'm gonna just hit whatever is there. I'm done making videos. I think that one will be pretty interesting. What the user is gonna get. We can set up alerts that if a user is doing something that they shouldn't be, like watching a YouTube on their VDA, and it will pop up and let them know that this is not what they should be doing. Oh, FIFA World. Good. Let's go for it. Oh, can you see there? The user got that acceptable usage policy. So there's multiple ways you can notify your users. So you can notify them about something based on the URL they're visiting. You could notify them based on any of the fields that are available. So as we were looking at that Matt Calero, for example, you could also notify them about the, and I did get it earlier, a notification on where's my data? Okay, there it is, on the Wi-Fi. So you could use any of these data points, whether it's metadata or metrics, to alert the user. So if you're using open Wi-Fi authentication, pop up a message to the user, let him know you're going to disconnect him if he doesn't fix that in a given amount of time, for example. So lots of way you can secure what's happening on those environments.
Can you also, can you look at certain things that the users might be doing that might indicate some sort of, I don't know, maybe the user's running an application that they don't often run or something like that, right? Or logging in from a weird place or something like that. Can you query on those sorts of things from a security perspective?
So we're bringing in a lot of that information that's available. Let me see if I maybe on our the disconnected users is a classic one, right? You want to know what are, maybe that your users don't leave sessions running, or that you have some type of policy that enforces that your policy to log off is working. We do have an example where actually when we're talking about running machines in Azure, you usually don't have your idle time policy too stringent, because during the day people, take a lunch break. You don't want to log them off right away. So during the day, you can have your idle time policy at a normal, maybe 2-hour time. But then as the workday ends, you could change your idle time policy and have it through ControlUp close sessions much quicker than that. Maybe after 30 minutes, right? You don't want people to leave sessions running. And when you're talking about cloud, it allows you to much quicker get to shut down machines. And when in cloud, it's all about cost. So notice how in ControlUp, I can also load my Azure subscription and get an idea of how much is it costing me last month, what's costing me this month, and what's the forecast if I stay at the same track. And I could do that at a per machine level, where I could look at every machine and see what's their uptime, how much are they consuming, and look at the Azure specific information like cost and subscription information, image information, and allow me to even power on and power off machines directly through the Azure API.
I've actually just got a question coming there around the videos, saying, is it possible to filter them on like to allow educational videos or videos from certain channels on YouTube and not allow other ones? Or is it just a URL based block that you're looking at?
What we have here, and for demo purposes, is just based on the URLs. So you could get more inventive. So actually, there it is. If I can just type it right. So maybe I can go over here and say, I'm going to if I can add except, right, URL active application title is not, and then Khan Academy, right? So I can probably write something that it does not, right?
Okay, so they're all customizable filters. Yeah, it's not
Yes.
something that's just, you tick a few boxes and you're restricted. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Awesome. Now, again, from a security perspective, tons of things that we could do. Let me get that user off of that so that it stops consuming that much CPU. But what we want is we want to give you a platform that allows you to monitor the whole user experience. So again, going back to that sessions pane where you see everything that's happening, I can track that a user is having a very bad Wi-Fi connection. So this is as bad as it can get, right? This is where I can ping the user and let them know their Wi-Fi is under par, and I get that every once in a while myself, because yep, there it is. Right, this is, I got my my notifications because I've been also a bad boy and using bad Wi-Fi's. So anytime I'm using a bad Wi-Fi, it'll pop up and let me know. We can also do that for that user, and we can set how often do we want them to get those messages, so that we can help them. This is the type of things where the digital employee experience is controlled by the user. You can't control their Wi-Fi, but you can help them understand that that's the problem.
How granular can you get with those pop-ups? Because I'm sorry for trying almost hijacking it here, but I'm thinking one of the big problems I have is users who connect to Citrix and they're running Teams and it's not HDX optimized. Now, I would love to be able to pop up a message that says your Citrix session is not HDX optimized. Please do something about it. You know, phone a support team or something like that. That would be great.
So let's do this, and I'm going to use my own session. It's usually the easiest one. Let me pop up Teams, and ooh, what happened? I thought I had Teams, so I guess it's not. You can have script-based actions that pop up and alert the user based on Teams. Let me see if I have it over here. Teams, yeah, there's an option that checks for Citrix HDX team optimization readiness. So what that one does is, and I believe it needs some maintenance. So this script will look, again, based on all this document. I did not invent it, right? I just follow and gather all the information here, and then I'm going to grab the information, the session ID, the VDA version, the Citrix receiver version, the protocol. Is the user allowed to make changes on the machine? So is it PVS or MCS? And I'll show you in a second where that comes into play. And then I'll check, does the VDA have the latest, the proper validation? Is it at the right level? Does the VDA have the VDA service running? So I notice how it's checking all these things for you. Does it have the web browser redirection policy? I don't know if it must be implicitly enabled if the VDA is less than 7. So you can write how to, this is already doing all of those tests, testing the receiver, and then reporting to the user, did it pass, did it not, and give recommendations, whether it's on VDA. Now this is doing it to the admin, but we could also pop things to the user. So if the problem was more on the receiver version, then we could actually pop it up, not just to the user, to the admin, but pop it to the user in session.
Wow, that's pretty good, because I mean, the only option I've kind of got at the minute, right, is just to run a report from Director and see who's got out-of-date receiver versions and send people around to go and kick them basically for having out-of-date receiver versions. It's not very clever, is the point I'm trying to get at. So being able to actually actively see what's in the session will be really cool.
So here, for example, I can run it, and I haven't checked this one, but you can see here VDA version is really old. The Citrix receiver is probably okay. The Teams version is decent. Everything seems fine, but for a machine that has disk, user changes are local, not we don't, it's not on the machine, then we would want Teams to be in the program files directory, for example.
Yeah.
So again, it's doing a lot of detection. You could make it more intelligent and add to this and customize it. Maybe you want them on a specific version of receiver, or you don't want them on 1912. But that one
the
does.
Specific receiver versions and specific VDA versions, especially with things like pop-outs in Teams and background blur and things like that, which, are big deal breakers to some of my users. Yeah, that's pretty good. And I mean, yeah, as long as you can customize it yourself, right? That's brilliant that you've got the stuff to work with there. Yeah.
Yeah. Now that this is, again, what we've always done is giving you the script library where you have a lot of community, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of community scripts that you can take in, and then just as I show you here, you can go into the script itself, and then customize it, right? Look at what you want, and then add or remove. Okay.
Cool.
I also want to highlight, just I know we haven't mentioned it, but if somebody's having problems like here, it could be issues on the client device, or it could be something different. This is the all-time demo that we've done, but our capability of tying in together everything that affects the user, whether it's the delivery group, something on the hypervisor, on the data stores, you could notify, visualize what's happening for that user. Notice that there's a high networks, high traffic on that machine. High traffic, if I go back to its hypervisor, high traffic on the hypervisor, and pop out and take a look at what's happening historically on that machine. This, for example, is something that has been happening for several days. So I can pinpoint that here. I can drill into that, identify the machine, and then even go into that machine's historical data. Let me pop it up and see everything that has been happening on that machine, whether it's a day, 3 days, 7 days, or a month, and even a year. So this is our typical demo machine where we have something running, and you can actually see how the memory is just going up until it crashes, and then it blue screens, and we restart it and we start again. Again, live. This is the historical piece of it, so there's nothing I could do here on this. But if I go back to the machine and I wanted to take immediate action, you could just right-click on a machine and take action directly from here. So again, we've talked a little bit about everything we could do here. We did talk about the BYO and the contractor devices. But we mentioned Teams, so I want to take a minute and go show on some of the things we could do for Teams, unless we have questions from the audience, James. Or...
The only outstanding question you got was an ask about, the Wi-Fi, the bad signal notifications. Is there some sort of template that you can work from to configure those?
Of course.
Or is it all...
Yeah, of course. If you, again, go to the script actions, search for Wi-Fi on the community, you're going to see one for the open AP access point and the poor Wi-Fi. And let me just pull it up. I believe what it does let you do, the poor Wi-Fi, it tells you what is the message. So you could just go here and change your message.
Okay.
Okay, or change what is the value where you want to alert and what's the title of that pop-up. Again, it's all configurable. Let me actually pop it up just so that you guys can see it. So I'm going to walk to my machine, and we are looking at this session. So I can go and invoke that. It's invoke it. So I don't have poor Wi-Fi at the moment, but if I was to invoke it, that's the part that happens behind the scene, and you're going to see the pop-up right over here. There it is.
Excellent.
Okay. And one thing to highlight about this Wi-Fi information that we were looking at. So I know that we do see most people where they're using machines those machines are Windows. We do support this also for machines that are Mac and Linuxes. So it can be installed directly on any Citrix workspace app on Linux, but we do have instructions on how to do it on most of the thin client vendors. So iGel, HP, ThinPro, Stratadesk, Tenzing, and it's even available on Dell-wise devices. And I was mentioning, that this particular device, aside from that remote DX capability, it happens to be a device that is part of our managed fleet. So we will, if that device is part of your managed fleet, you could from here, from the context of the user in that session, pop up into the ControlUp edge point, a physical endpoint device monitoring, where you can see everything that's happening on that device. How much CPU is the device consuming? This part is the full-blown agent, so not something you'd put on your third parties or BYOs, but those devices that your company does manage, work group or domain joined. We can deploy that and monitor them. You could see here something was running until yesterday throughout the day, consuming a lot of CPU. And I can identify that we had a Teams call running throughout the night. I was consuming 11% CPU, costing some CPU queue length. We could look at the latency, which was perfectly good until I put it on the worst location at home, so that its latency just went off the roof. So if this user was to call, I would say, well, what did what happened at 11:40, at 12:42 today? Because you had a perfect internet connection, and then it just got really, really bad throughout that in the last hour or so. So this gives you the ability to monitor the digital employee experience, both for the device.
Question about Solve here. It's asking, can you analyze the logon durations from Solve, or do you have to still go somewhere else to do that?
So that's a great question. Let me go and show how we used to do this in the past. I believe the user's called Jim Slow. There it is. So I do have Jim. It's one of those users we have here. Connect to the machines he's on. You could see that this is one of those users that consistently gets very, very ugly logon duration. For every user session that logs in, we will calculate 5 buckets of logon duration. We'll gather the overall, but we'll break it into how long did it take to load the group policies, to load the profile, logon duration, and the desktop and other. And then there's one new bucket, which is how long did it take for the user to click on the legal notice. That's a pretty nifty one. I don't think anybody else does that. So we had to do some really interesting things to be able to capture how long did it take for that user to click on that legal notice. And again, if I remove that filter, you're going to see we do have it connected here. Let's see if I have anybody else that had high time on that. 17 seconds, 11 seconds. You can actually see how long did it take for those users to click on that logon duration notice. But back to the question on the analyzed logon duration. So aside from those buckets, you could run a script to do a detailed dissection of the analyzed logon duration. There's 3 things that were not perfect with this. Number 1 is you had to click on something to do it. Number 2 is it took a long time. Number 3, if the user logged off already, you couldn't run it anymore. So 3 major disadvantages to doing it this way. You can click on it, click on the OK, and it will start running. It'll take about a minute, and sometimes the user has already, the data has cycled or the user logged off. What we're doing today is we're recommending that if the logon duration is above your threshold, and we took 75 as our, let's say, our recommendation. So if the logon duration was above 75 seconds, automatically run that analyzed logon duration. Make sense? Now that will happen automatically. You can run it through Solve if you wanted. So I can go over here. Let's go and search for John Slow. Jim Slow. It's the guy that always has that. So I can right click here and run that user analyze logon duration. But better than this, I already told you that if he had more than 75 seconds, I automatically run a script, and that script logged the results on the audit log. So I can go over here, search for those analyze logon duration script executions, and I already have the output. So here's the output for one of them. Here's the user. Loop processing was set to merge. Again, very old VDA, very old receiver, 14.9. I can see how long did it take for Citrix RSOP. I can see Citrix group policy was the major culprit of that logon duration. And then even get all the details as we've seen it in the past on which group policies affected the most. So hopefully that answers the question, James, on that. So you can invoke it on the fly from our web console, but the web console also has the results of the scheduled tasks where you can schedule it to
pretty
auto
good where you've already got the information there when they have a bad log on. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Awesome. What else did we speak? We spoke about teams. So one thing we're starting to have an offering for is to do some unified communications and collaboration analyses. And here, what we're doing is nobody has done any calls on this demo environment today, but if I look at yesterday, I can see one user provided feedback and it wasn't very good. There were several calls with failures, and I can go look at my calls. Let's go look at one of these calls that had a failure here in video. I can go to the details of that call, and I'll get the information that comes from the Microsoft API, where I can see who were the participants of that call, what devices did they use, and what was their providers. And notice that as I hover over the devices, if I have more details on that device, because our edge device monitoring is running on them, it'll pop up and allow me to click on it. But I want to show that aside from the averages and the overall quality that Microsoft Teams provides you from their API connection, we will add the data that was recorded on the individual machines for that call. So I can see that this laptop had absolutely no problems with the mean opinion score, but the problems were more on the desktop NUC on that workgroup we were looking at. And there was definitely a drop halfway through the call at around 5:38 p.m. And just to show you that, let's go look at the device itself, 5:38. So that's yesterday. Let's look at 5:38 was around here. I can see Teams was the #1 thing running on that device. And I can see a sharp increase in the latency on that device. And I do want to highlight this is real data from yesterday. So I did grab this 2 devices, did the call in Teams, and then basically moved this device to the worst network location so that latency got worse and worse. And you can see the details here on that, the cause of that Teams call having issues yesterday. So we got about 15 more minutes. And Stephanie, just let us know from a time perspective, how much more time do we have? And if there's any other questions.
There is a question in about all these kind of newest features that you've got. Do you need to upgrade to specific versions to activate them? I guess it depends on the configuration, whether you're on an on-premises or the sort of cloud-based model, isn't it?
So let me pop up the architectural diagram again. Our recommendation obviously is to try to be at the latest and greatest. The way the product is architected, the configuration console needs to be at the highest level. Our current release is 8.7. We do recommend that if you upgrade the configuration console, you upgrade your data aggregators or your VDI and DaaS monitor service. You could do that directly from the configuration console. And then the agents don't need to be updated right away. Again, for feature parity, you would want to. I would say that if you are not on 8.6.5.465, which was released about 4 months ago, you want to upgrade to at least that version for all functionality. But and let me see if I go to our configuration console, if I have anything that is running old versions. I know I had one of my PCs over here is running an older version. So I have some, some of the newer functionalities not coming in from that machine. I know that my MC, no, it's on the VMware side. Some of these machines haven't been upgraded yet. So again, I get most of the data, but some of the absolutely new functionality is not there yet. Which on new functionality, just to show one of those new things, we added the capability of looking at any GPU. So if you've known ControlUp, we've been able to look at the GPU and GPU metrics for NVIDIA through the NVIDIA API. We did add the capability of looking at any GPU, including the NVIDIA commercial cards, the GeForce Line and the AMD and the Intel pass-throughs, starting on our 8.7. So that's something that does require the latest version.
I was wondering, from, we were talking the security perspective before. I mean, obviously, what you get with ControlUp is a huge amount of visibility into your environment, right? You can see what's going on, you can set up alerts, you can set up things to interact with the users. Is there anything else around that kind of security perspective, when it comes to making your environment safer, I guess, or more secure that you've got within there as features?
So the focus of the product is the digital employee experience. As I was showing here, right, just looking at the individual user session, we do bring a lot of information to help you understand what's happening. We've seen a lot of teams that although it was brought in for the digital employee experience monitoring, the security team jumped in and asked for additional data. On the physical endpoint devices, for example, we do have a couple of customers where, and I think I have the full-blown demo of what they asked. So there was a customer that needed a site. Let me grab one device and show it. So we bring in basic information on the device, GPU, CPU, but there was a customer that needed to get all data on the BIOS. And it was the security team needed that overnight, and they were able to run the command, get all of those individual device information that they needed, and put it into what we call a data index. So they created the script, they saved, scheduled it to run, and then they went to the data a couple of minutes later, and they had the data for all their devices. So let's just remove all the interesting information, and they had the information for all of their devices with a plethora of data. So this capability of running a script in mass, whether it's to a machine or to a user session, is something that security teams will love to be able to do.
So it's you're looking at it from a compliance perspective, right? So we can get visibility into what's connecting to our networks, and make sure that we are covered from that perspective. I mean, compliance is a huge thing, right? And I mean, and you can do that on any sort of device. I'm probably again speaking from my own personal experience. I've got lots of developers with Linux devices that love to use those to connect up to things as well.
Mm-hmm. And you definitely could do it Linux, Mac OS, Windows. Okay.
Cool.
I see. What about looking at vGPU metrics? So
Yes,
I mentioned, yep. Let me pop it up over here, and I'm going to focus on my vGPU machines. Where am I? Over here. Here are my vGPU machines. So you can see I have several machines. I can see the CPU information. I can look at the GPU information for those machines. The GPU utilization, where did it go? The GPU utilization, and I can drill into each one of these machines and look at the information for the processes and look at GPU information for the processes. Information about FPS encoding and decoding. So this is we do not collect in real time that information. I see the question being asked. It brings me to something really important that again, doesn't make the highlights, but everything we're showing here is being collected every 3 seconds. Now, the main concern you should be asking is, how do you do this efficiently? How do you make sure that if you're collecting over 500 metrics every 3 seconds, you're not causing a CPU hog? And we're not, right? You could see here every 3 seconds data is being updated on every metric on the environment. FPS and encoding decoding on a Citrix session can be collected, but it has to do through WMI queries. And WMI queries is something we do not do in our recurrent collection cycles because those are expensive in CPU. So if you need, you could create a script and have it invoked into your sessions wherever relevant. Let's look at that, Matt Galera. And this is the user that's active. So I can right click over here, look for HDX metrics and collect any HDX metrics you want. But we do not do them consistently because they would you know, through WMI, it's just you don't want to do it all the time. On thin clients, I see another question. So as I mentioned earlier, in the context of a Citrix user session, we do collect for thin clients remote DX metrics. They allows that those metrics on. I'm going to focus on Linux devices. I have to go for it. There's. Let's leave it blank. I'm not sure what I'm missing here. So latency to the router, latency to the internet, packet loss, which NIC is being used, and these you can see here. These are some thin clients that are on their Linux interface names. What is the speed of the internet of that network? The private IP, public IP, BSSID and SSID, and all the parameters on the Wi-Fi authentication if they're on Wi-Fi. And then what's the version of the client OS? That's what we do in the context of Citrix. So in the context of a Citrix session, we can collect that information. In the context of our thin client and HDX or HDX physical endpoint monitoring, we'll collect the same information we collect for our PCs. So manufacturer, the hardware and OS information, disk information are the disk encrypted or not, information on the network connectivity. And then we capture metrics on CPU, memory, IO, network every minute. We'll also capture installed applications, and this happens to be an IGEL device, and the running services. So tons of information which can be looked at device-specific view, or on the report, you can actually pull it on all the devices. So let's go and look here specifically on Unix or Linux, CPU, memory, serial number, the model and manufacturer of the device, the version of the operating system, and the patch level.
There's an awful lot. I mean, it's been a while since I've looked at ControlUp, and it appears to, you've added tons and tons of new features, which is obviously great. The only thing is, obviously, it feels a lot more kind of sort of involved than it used to be. Obviously, with all the custom scripts and things like that. So have you got like sort of good documentation and support forums and things like that? Because I imagine it's getting to the stage where it might feel a little bit intimidating for somebody coming to it kind of sort of fresh, as it were.
So you'll find that first there's our support pages, our knowledge center, where you'll find all of that information, including the diagram that I was looking at. So here's the link to that diagram, and I'll paste that on the chat. Just a starter, that's where you'll find that diagram that I've been using throughout the explanations. It is searchable, so if you need something specific, for example, on Linux, you just type Linux, I'll give you all the results on it. The other thing is we have an academy where we offer training for training and certification, both for physical endpoints and virtual apps and desktops. And that's how to use our tool. There'll be a basic, which is how to use the product, and a more advanced that talks about how to add scripts, add triggers, and get more value and customize this to your environment.
You bet. And there's one other piece too. We also have, yeah, we can't forget this, right? So just recently we launched our own community. So we utilize Slack, and within the community, it's well, you can get to it directly from within the product. You can also head over to ControlUp.com/community. And when you log in, you know, it's a great way to stay up to date, really, to learn, to chat with all of our product managers, brainstorm with other experts, and really stay up to date, learn, collaborate. We even have the beta program in there too. So as the beta products come out, you can register and then learn all about them within the community too. And even if you're not part of that beta program, you will still be able to follow what's going on within the beta program, so you can spot what's coming before you even have access to it. And of course, we're listening too. We just posted something just yesterday asking the community about a new free version we might be launching at some point. And we're sort of getting some feedback from our members. So we want to hear from you too. So please join us. Head over to ControlUp.com/community and have some fun. And that's the last thing too, is community is always a little bit of fun too. So please.
Yeah, it's definitely always good. I mean, I'm a member of quite a few sort of community Slack channels, and you know, you can often solve things in there much easier than actually going through support sometimes, you know. But it's just also the kind of the depth of knowledge that you get from it. I mean, because there's many things that I'm not an expert in, right? And I just go and talk to the guys in the community, and there's always somebody who can help you out in that. But as long as you give back, obviously, that's the key thing.
You got it. You got it. One of my favorite questions is always, and we're only a month old now, so the knowledge will grow and grow and grow. But one of my favorite types of questions is, you know, hey, I'm a customer, I'm thinking about doing X. What are you guys doing? You know, what are you folks doing? And then we get, you know, 2 or 3 other folks saying, oh, we did it this way. Oh, we do it this way. Oh, we did it this way. And this is why. So yeah, that collaboration between the different expertises and locations and cultures and what have you is just phenomenal.
Okay, Stephanie, we are at the top of the hour, and I love having the questions, and hopefully we've been able to address all of those.
Yeah, I've got a quick one in there. So have you got any integration with ServiceNow in the pipeline?
So there's some stuff happening through it. The product does support, has multiple ways you can integrate today with ServiceNow. You can, if I go to my triggers, you can add to any one of your triggers a webhook action. So anytime that something, and here's an example, anytime you run something, you could end it up with a follow-up action, and that follow-up action could include doing a ServiceNow web API. So you definitely can do that. You could do them to Teams. That is available today in the product. We do have on our Scout Biz, which I did not touch into, we do have the capability of doing a ServiceNow integrations. Where am I? Right here. So and you can configure your ServiceNow integration and send alerts into ServiceNow. And there's more to come.
All right. I think we're one more popped in.
Oh, sorry. Where are we?
We'll take this last one. So sorry, James, I just stepped on.
So can we receive APIs? Yes, there are several ways. The one that it's available today that I've seen a lot of development around it is our VDI and DaaS monitor, which is constantly monitoring everything and has the hooks and can execute actions. Does have a PowerShell commandlet that was just released. I believe it's just commandlets. Command PowerShell commands. There it is. I believe this is it. So I'm gonna paste this and paste it on the chat. Okay, I pasted it there. So yes, this is brand new. It's been out for about 6 months, I would say, but it does have the ability to add, create, get information and move information, tons of action driven to receive API commands.
All right, thank you. Let me pull up. I have one last slide. It's a good one because it has a $200 Amazon gift card on it. Just in time for the holidays. Thank you so much, Doug and Marcel and James. Thanks so much for being here. Appreciate you guys being on today. I know some of you out there may have opted in for a chance to win a $200 Amazon gift card. I wish I could win it. I will pull the report as soon as I close out this webinar, and we'll randomly select a winner. So be on the lookout for an email from me, or watch us on Twitter to see who won. And also just a reminder that we did record today's session, and you'll get a link to that recording tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. And I guess with that, I can let you all get back to your days or your evenings. Thanks again so much, ControlUp, for being here. And thank you, James, for helping with all that Q&A.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, you guys, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you again on another CUGC event soon, hopefully. Bye.